Hello, welcome to the NFL Daily Fantasy Flex podcast at FantasyLabs. I am your host, Bryan Mears. As always, I'm joined by FantasyLabs guys Matthew Freedman and Peter Jennings, aka CSU Ram 88. We are in week 11, and in this podcast, we have special guest Mike Tagliere. He is the lead NFL writer at Fantasy Pros. He co-hosts their Fantasy Pros football podcast. Great to have you on, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. It's crazy to think that we're already in week 11. We get bored of these games that we watch on Monday night, like watching the Dolphins play, but pretty soon, we're going to be missing watching the Browns play football. Like, that's the sad reality of it. So I'm definitely happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, a very interesting week in week 10. Pete, how are you doing? And, is that the worst NFL slate of football that you can remember?
Certainly it was not filled with fantasy goodness, and it was capped off by losing a Q by 2 points. Brian, you saw the link on the last Cam Funchess stack. I think I was like a 95% favorite going into Monday night and lost by 1.5 points with Devontae Freeman in my lineup. So it was a puke week for me, capitalized with some really bad stuff at the end, but ready to move on here to week 11 where I think there's a lot of really good opportunity and a lot of great plays. And Mike and I were talking a little Amari Cooper pre-show, so I'm sure we'll dive into that as well.
Oh, I'm sure we will. All right, well, let's dive into the show. As always, we're going to start with a segment that we call Real or Fake. I'm going to go around the board here and ask all these guys to give me one real trend. It could be from last week, or it could be just from the last couple of weeks of the whole season. One real trend that we think is going to continue, and then one fake trend. Freeman, I'll start with you. How you doing, and what are your trends?
I'm doing all right. I have no idea how I did on the skill game props, so anxious to hear about that. But one real trend, it might seem like this is sort of like after the fact and sort of obvious, but I'm going with the Saints defense. Right now they lead the league with 5.5 Vegas opponent plus minus. So on average, they're holding opponents 5.5 points below their implied totals, which is just a really strong mark. So that defensive overperformance has enabled the Saints to rely more on the running game. So they are fifth right now in rush rate at 47.26%. So it's really just a different type of Saints team than we've seen in previous seasons, which I hate to say it, but that basically means that sadly the Coors Field of fantasy football is probably no more just because of what we've seen from that team. In terms of fake, I'm going to say that, and this is actually probably a real, but I'm framing it in terms of fake. I'm saying the idea that the Patriots aren't the best team in the league, that is a fake idea. So they've won 5 in a row. Brady is playing the best football of his career. That defense is transforming itself. So probably not elite, but better than like the worst defense in the league that we were seeing the first month of the season. And one thing that I think is just incredible is that they are just smarter than other organizations in the small things that they do. So they're playing this week in Mexico City. It's at elevation around like 7,300 feet above sea level. They stayed in Colorado this last week to acclimate to elevation after their game at Mile High. Like, they're just doing small things. And I think over the course of a season, those small things add up to an extra win or an extra 2 wins, which gives them home field advantage in the playoffs and things like that. So I think it's just I think they are set up to be the team of the second half of the season. And for this week, they opened as 5.5-point favorites. That line quickly moved to 7. And one thing that's interesting is the market has actually been pretty sharp on the Patriots this year. So they've been implied for 28.56 points per game, and they've hit exactly, in terms of what they've scored, 28.56 per game. So right now they're implied as the highest team on the slate. I love the Patriots for this week and basically for all of the weeks to come.
Awesome.
I like super it. Cool. They're training at the Air Force Academy, which is pretty close to where my wife is actually working right now, and just so sharp. I believe it has the exact same elevation or within like a couple feet of where they're going to be playing. So so much props to the Patriots and their coaching staff. There's a reason they've had sustained greatness, which is very hard to do in the NFL.
For sure. Mike, what are some trends that you've been noticing lately?
So it might sound like it's a given at this point, but I usually don't buy into the whole players quit on their coach, the slogan there. But knowing what's going on with the Giants, that team has given up on the coach. Like Ben McAdoo's lost that team. The Giants have basically come out and said they're not going to fire him in season, but at the end of the year, it's going to happen. So knowing that, seeing what they've allowed this year, it's just you have to go all the way back to week 3 to the last time that they've held a quarterback outside of the top 10 at the position. They've allowed 16 passing touchdowns in the last 6 games, including 4 300-yard games. C.J. Beathard last week tore him up. Like that's the end of the rope. Obviously, we're going to talk about that game. It's you're able to play guys from that game. And then the fake thing is that Drew Brees is not an elite quarterback. I'm refusing to buy in. It's not to say that Drew Brees is the top 3 play every single week that he kind of used to be, but I think that people are over exaggerating the demise of Drew Brees. Ian Rappaport tweeted something this weekend saying that Drew Brees isn't making some of the throws that he made earlier in his career. I'm like, the guy has a higher completion percentage than he's ever had in his career. His yards per attempt is the 3rd highest it's been in his career. And some people are saying, well, it's because he's targeting his running backs. He has always targeted his running backs throughout his entire career. That's nothing new. His average depth of target is still pretty in line with what it's been. It's just there's a positive regression coming there for Brees. And yes, the attempts are down, so the ceiling's going to be a little bit down. But I'm not buying the fact that Drew Brees is no longer an elite quarterback.
Pete, round us out here.
Yeah, really, really good point on the Saints. Their offensive line play has been amazing, too. I mean, across the board, this is just a really, really good team. We'll talk about them more. In terms of real, I know it's not applicable this week, but something we can buy, especially down the end of the stretch, is this Carolina offense. Cam running more is massive for them, especially for players like Christian McCaffrey. The passing game, I mean, it just opens everything up because it makes the defense a guess. And I think that we'll see kind of 2015-esque Carolina Panthers offense going forward. I'm definitely buying them. In terms of fake, I think it's interesting, looking at some of these different spots and some of these teams. Like the one team that I want, I don't know if this is like a call as much, but the Lions are a team that I'm really trying to figure out here going into the Bears. They looked awful in that first half after looking great the week before throwing the football. I'm a little concerned about the balance that they have on offense. So, Mike, what's your thoughts on the Lions offense going forward? I was tempted to say that maybe that last week was fake, but after looking through some numbers a little bit more, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out this Lions offense for the kind of latter half of the season.
Yeah, the Lions offense last year, it was kind of like a similar thing where it's like you saw Matt Stafford come out at the beginning of the year and tear things up. It was like through the first 6 weeks, it kind of was in line with Marvin Jones and how he was performing, and everything kind of fell off. I know they want to get this run game going. The fact that their offensive line is starting to get a little bit healthier is going to help. But this is going to be another down week for Matt Stafford. If you go back to last year against the Bears, it's divisional matchup, the Lions, he just didn't play well. I want to say that he didn't throw a single touchdown in the 2 games against them last year. He didn't throw for more than 225 yards. They're trying to play more of a ball control style offense. They're trying to give Amir Abdullah plenty of carries. He's not getting much done, but it's been efficient, I guess, for them. So Matt Stafford, he is what he is. Like if you go through his consistency ratings throughout the years, I did an article this offseason highlighting players who are basically as consistent as you can get, the upside players, the bust players, and Stafford is in line. Even once he lost Calvin Johnson, he basically is that low-end QB1 every single year. He's going to give you QB1 performances about half the time. So, I mean, Stafford, I think we know who he is, but at the same time, there was some regression coming because Marvin Jones isn't going to win 50-50 balls every single game. The defense trending in the wrong direction, that's obviously going to help them because they've started to allow more and more to opposing passing games. So that you almost want the Lions defense to trend in the wrong direction for Stafford. But I mean, going forward, I would still view him as a low-end QB1 in a league where, I mean, I think there's only 4 quarterbacks we can say we feel confident starting every single week.
Just to add on to what Mike said, and I totally agree with the take that Stafford is in the fade category this week. He's a guy that I was going to bring up later as a fade. But one thing that is interesting about the Lions, maybe kind of holistically moving forward, up to this point in the season, they have hit their implied total in 7 of 9 games. So one of only 3 teams to have a mark that high. So even if they seem as if they're not a well-coached team and they're not very efficient running the ball, they've still been able to score points in expectations with what the market has. So that's something that's really interesting on them.
Okay, let's dive into this week. So we're in week 11. As far as bye week teams here, we have the Panthers, Colts, Jets, and 49ers. We're going to stick probably mostly to the main slate, even though we'll include some of these other games in our prop bets. Titans, Steelers are the Thursday night game. Eagles, Cowboys is this Sunday night game, a really nice one. Wish we could have it on DK's main slate. We'll talk about it, though, with props, and we can talk about some FanDuel players maybe with those guys. And then Monday night game this week is Falcons and the Seahawks. 11 games on the slate, and then obviously the Mexico City one is the one that's not actually in Oakland this week. So, all right, let's dive into the chalk. So first things first, when we're making we're making lineups this week, who are the first players that we are tending to lock in? Who are some of the chalky plays that we're fine with being in our cash game core? As always, I'll give a quick disclaimer that we're recording this on Tuesday night. Things could change. Always follow the news, follow our content. We'll update that. But as of Tuesday night, based on salaries, matchups, what we know about this weekend, Mike, who are some guys that are standing out to you that could be popular on Sunday?
Well, I wish we could have the Steelers on the main slate. Antonio Brown, if you're playing the Thursday night slate, that he should go nuts in that game. But Alex Smith is like a must play. He seems like a top 3 play. I mean, I think that's a given. He's on the road, which is a little down. But Andy Reid teams coming off a bye are 16-2 in his career, so they're always well prepared going in against the Giants. I don't know if they really need to be. Travis Kelce, obviously. I mean, that's like a play that just seems so obvious that it's bound to go wrong. You could look at Rob Gronkowski at the tight end position. But I'm curious with you guys. Like, I have Mike Evans there at wide receiver. Brandon Cooks, I think, is a solid play. But at running back, Melvin Gordon's a player who I always hesitate to play, but I feel like he's like a must play this week. Everything is aligning. And I know everybody's talking about Austin Eckler and him potentially taking over some of those snaps, but I can't get away from Melvin Gordon because he's the one who gets the carries where it matters most on the goal line. And, if you look at the Bills, they have now allowed 10 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 games. There is not a single team in the NFL who has allowed more than 10 rushing touchdowns on the entire season. So knowing what you know about them, knowing what Melvin Gordon has excelled in over the years, because it's definitely not his per-play production. That's not where he makes his money. It's on the goal line. His turf toe should be getting healthier. That's what they called it, was turf toe. He had a knee injury, I want to say, too. So he should be getting healthier as the weeks go on. I really do want to see Phillip Rivers in the lineup because he's in the concussion protocol. If he doesn't play, I just don't know how well that offense operates and how often they can get down on the goal line. So I do want to see Rivers play. But what are you guys' takes on Melvin Gordon this week?
I'm normally not a Melvin Gordon guy. I think he's fine, though. I mean, it's tough with the efficiency, but obviously the opportunity should still be there. We'll see what happens. But I like the spot in general, and obviously you got to monitor the Phillip Rivers news. I love the Alex Smith call. I had him kind of lined up as a pivot play away. I think most people in general don't like to click Alex Smith, even though he's been absolutely ridiculous this year. Alongside with that, I mean, kind of going forward, Tyreek Hill, I mean, has just been ridiculous on the road. Those road splits are absurd. Ian tweeted it out earlier today. So I'm curious your thoughts on that. I had that as a kind of a contrarian stack. In terms of who I think is going to be pretty chalky is definitely the Saints guys. I mean, Michael Thomas, everyone knows, is due for some really positive regression and touchdowns. I've been a Kamara guy all year. I think you can buy the lower price of Kamara in this spot versus Ingram, who a lot of people will be on. And I do think both of those guys certainly are in consideration for cash. And outside of that, I mean, I agree with Mike. I really wish Antonio Brown was on the slate because I think he's a great play, and I definitely don't mind locking him in on the Thursday slates. I think he's a really strong option. Friedman, you have a stronger take on Melvin Gordon and some of the stuff we talked about?
I'm going to save Melvin Gordon. Well, actually, I'll just talk about it. I think he was going to be probably one of my pivot plays just because I don't know if he's I don't know if he warrants like the locking in for cash games, but I see the logic and I'm thinking of that more in a pivot context. But I love the Kelce call. Totally agree. I mean, it looks like a smash bot. So it's like, hey, if something looks so great, it's bound to go wrong. But still, I'm going to be on it when it goes wrong. I should say I'm slightly embarrassed that last week, and again, we recorded this early in the week, but the last week we didn't mention Garrett Selleck, who was just like such an obvious play at some point. But so basically just like blanket statement, any tight end playing against the Browns or the Broncos is someone you should consider at least. And then obviously someone playing against the Giants, so Kelce. At quarterbacks, I definitely understand Alex Smith. I'm also looking at Brady. I think he's not too expensive just in context of how quarterbacks are normally priced. And I think he's just going to smash the Raiders, who are 32nd in pass DVOA. So a really good situation for him. And I could see it being a situation where the Raiders playing at elevation get gassed in the second half, and they're just not able to cover their guys. Blaine Gabbert, I hate to say that, but if he starts, he is so cheap, and he's going against the Texans defense that is allowing a lot of points to quarterbacks. So if you're looking to pay down, that's an option there. Running backs, totally agree with Ingram and Kamara. Rex Burkhead is someone who's interesting in that he's starting to get more snaps, more touches, and he's very cheap, especially on DraftKings. Tevin Coleman is someone who's interesting. Actually, wait a minute. No, that's wrong slate, right? Wrong slate. Never mind.
He is interesting, though.
Yeah, he is interesting. For wide receivers, Sterling Shepard is someone who's caught my eye going against the Chiefs, who allow the most fantasy points to wide receivers, and especially because he would be avoiding Marcus Peters, running in the slot against Steven Nelson, and then outside maybe against Kenneth Acker a little bit more than Marcus Peters. So interesting there. I'm interested in Amari going against the Patriots, who are
better. Don't steal my thunder, bro. Come on.
Sorry. Hey, I'm just saying for cash. Like I'm interested in this because he's cheap, and he's going against the Patriots defense that is allowing the most fantasy points in the league to opposing wide receivers. And even though they have been better recently, I mean, they're still not all that good against wide receivers. So I think it's still a good spot for him, given how cheap he is. Mike mentioned, I believe, Mike Evans, and I'm also interested in Evans, and I wanted to get your take on that. So Evans against the Dolphins, a good spot there for him in terms of the matchup. He's a target monster, but it's just it's hard to put him in cash when he has a backup quarterback throwing to him. And I could say the same thing about Larry Fitzgerald, who's interesting going against the Texans, but again, a backup quarterback throwing to him. So
and
I don't
Hopkins.
I don't know if any of those guys are people you want to lock in for cash, but they're definitely intriguing because they're getting the targets.
I wanted to mention on Evans, the reason I think Evans is such a great play is, like, obviously you watch the Dolphins on Monday Night Football. Like, Xavier Howard and Cordray Tankersley are literally have bad communication. On top of that, they just got TJ McDonald, their free safety, back from suspension. He played his first game. And it's kind of like I'm from Chicago, so I got to watch the Bears, and the Bears safety duo basically was a brand new one to start the season. And you saw the miscommunications between the two to start the year, which is when Austin Hooper he went for 128 yards and a touchdown. It's basically these safeties are going to take time to gel with the cornerbacks. TJ McDonald, obviously coming from LA, is going to change a few things. Now, it'd be one thing if you could say, okay, Mike Evans is in the lineup. We're going to shade a safety his way, like kind of like take away that number one option. They couldn't do that with Funchess last night. And Devin Funchess is nowhere near the wide receiver, the talent that Mike Evans is. And on top of that, you have to worry about Deshaun Jackson on the other side of the field. Now, I know that Ryan Fitzpatrick didn't really pan out for those who played him last week, and I didn't really want to play him last week when we knew that Mike Evans was going to be suspended. Deshaun Jackson is not a number one receiver. He's not that guy you want to see, 9-10 targets a game. Chris Godwin is a rookie receiver. Adam Humphries has been playing like really bad lately. Obviously, and the thing is that people kind of they took for granted when they went to Fitzpatrick. Everybody's like, oh, it's an upgrade for everyone. I was saying it was a slight downgrade for Evans and Jackson, but I said it was a bigger downgrade to Cameron Brate, because if you go back to Ryan Fitzpatrick in New York, he really didn't target his tight end very much. Now, you could say all you want about the targets, but I want to say that in 2015, he targeted tight ends like legitimately like 20 times. Like, Rob Gronkowski can get 20 targets in one game. We're talking about an entire season. So when you have Deshaun Jackson on the other side of the field, they're going to be forced into one-on-ones with Mike Evans. Ryan Fitzpatrick is like the straight DGAF quarterback. Like, he is what everybody thinks Jay Cutler is. He is willing to throw it up. He's got his number one weapon back this week. He struggled without him. Doug Martin's not getting anything done on the ground. I just see this as a game as Mike Evans is going to see like 13, 14 targets. And once we get to the bold predictions, I'll kind of like give my take on that. But Mike Evans is he's in a position to smash. And I don't see any other wide receiver that you'd pay up for this week, like AJ Green. As much as Denver's been like slacking lately, I just don't think you could pay for him. Like Tyreek Hill, while I do like him as a tournament play, I'm not going to touch him in cash, I don't think. It's just, if you're going to pay up for wide receiver, I think Mike Evans is the guy.
Love that call, and wish I would have paid more attention to the splits with Fitzpatrick and his tight end. I ate some of the Brate chalk last week. Obviously that was terrible, but I love the call on Fitzpatrick to Evans going back to it. I mean, people are going to have a ton of recency bias against Fitzpatrick. I know you're emphasizing Mike Evans more, but if we think Mike Evans is going to have a really big game, I mean, that could be nice for Fitzpatrick as a contrarian play, which I guess we can dive into that now, Brian.
Go for it.
I was going to say Cooper as a contrarian play, but I guess Freedman already brought him out as a cash guy. I'm going to be on Cooper, obviously. I mean, at some point, we're going to see another game like we saw on Monday night. Maybe not, obviously, to that same degree, but this is too talented of a player to be held down. My only concern, I guess, with him is that Belichick really schemes to take him away, but the Oakland Raiders still have a lot of options, and Michael Crabtree, if you try to do a lot of things on Cooper, he can have a really nice game as well. So hopefully he won't see too much bracket coverage, and hopefully he'll have a lot of opportunities. I think he's a really nice play. Another really contrarian guy that I think could be interesting this week in general is Keenan Allen. And I don't know if he's going to be contrarian, and obviously this depends on Phillip Rivers, but his price tag is way too cheap for a PPR guy on DraftKings. I know he hasn't been getting it done lately, but I still think the upside's there in terms of just his, getting over 100 yards, getting a lot of catches. And at 5,900, I think he's a really intriguing option. I know they've been getting beat more on the ground recently, but I'm still interested in Keenan Allen at only 5,900. Mike, Matt, what are your guys' thoughts there?
Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's not someone who I was a big fan of coming into the season, and it was something that a lot of people have missed, and people keep going back to that season where he started out really hot. He was on pace to finish as like a top 5 wide receiver, but he was also on pace for like 190 targets that year. And going back through his game logs is like, it's our job to find out when a player is consistent, when he's not. What does he need in order to be consistent? And knowing that Hunter Henry, they're trying to get him on the field more. His snaps did dip a little bit, but they're also trying to get Mike Williams involved in the offense, who played a season-high 27 snaps last week. So there's so many moving parts here. Keenan Allen, the stat I have for you on that, Pete, is that in games where he sees less than 10 targets, like that's a big number, right? Like if you get 10 targets in a game, that's monster. So I'm talking about a reasonable thing. Like if he sees 9 or less targets, he averages 3.7 receptions and 47 yards per game in his career. Basically, he's only 8. Like in games where he sees 10 or more targets, he averages 8.7 receptions for 103 yards. So when he sees those massive target totals, light him up. My concern with Keenan Allen this week is that obviously we don't know if Phillip Rivers is going to play. If Phillip Rivers does play, he's not going to be involved in many of the practices this week because he's going to be stuck going through this protocol. In the matchup they have against Buffalo, it may not be necessary that they throw the ball so much. Now, the matchup that he has in the slot against Leonard Johnson is a good one. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's not. He's overdue for a touchdown. Like he hasn't scored since week 1. He's still seeing plenty of targets. I want to say he's averaging around 7 or 8 per game. So there's still the opportunity there. I mean, I wouldn't trust him in cash, but I do think he's an interesting tournament option because he's been forgotten about. Like people don't want to play Keenan Allen anymore. They're just kind of done with him now that he's not seeing the volume that he once did, because I want to say he hasn't seen double-digit targets since way back in week 5. So knowing that all these moving parts are kind of going on the offense, that's what's got me a little worried on Keenan Allen, but I do think he's going to be a lower-owned option at a decent price.
You got me rethinking. The main reason he was popping for me initially, and this is, again, early in the week, is just the price reduction that we've seen from Keenan Allen. Mm-hmm. And you're bringing up good points. I mean, the targets haven't been there as much. They were heavily – he was getting peppered initially in the beginning of the season, but my thought process was his price is coming way down. It's a good matchup in the slot against Buffalo. And Phillip Rivers, I think, in general, given that he's going through the concussion protocol, a lot of people are going to be afraid to take his pass catchers. So I get it. I think that's a more compelling argument for Melvin Gordon, who probably is the better pivot play.
One quick thing on Keenan Allen here. Ever since week 4, when Hunter Henry started playing more snaps, and specifically a lot of those snaps and the routes he's running have been in the slot. And when that's happening, they've actually been shifting Keenan Allen out of the slot. So since week 4, he hasn't been playing in the slot nearly as much as he did in the first 3 weeks and earlier in the year. And when he's not in the slot, he's not getting those cushy matchups. So just not as much love for him in general because of where he's playing. Yeah, let me.
That's good stuff, boys. See, early in the week now I won't be in my initial builds. I was thinking Keenan Allen might be intriguing, but you guys talked me off.
Now watch. He's going to catch like 10 balls for like 120 yards and 2 touchdowns.
What's sticking in my mind, he makes really acrobatic catches, and I've been thinking like, hey, I got to get on because I haven't rostered him that much recently. I got to get back on him, and I thought this might be the spot, but. Yeah, I think there's pretty compelling evidence that you guys just brought up that he's probably not as much of a play as I thought. Melvin, someone on the Chargers is definitely a good play, though, against this Buffalo.
For sure.
I think people are still overrating them.
Yeah, I have so I'll kind of pick up there. I have Melvin Gordon as one of the guys that I'm interested in as a pivot. And I think specifically kind of pivoting away from Gurley and Fournette. Both of whom are good players, but Gurley has a tough matchup on the road. As an underdog. And then Fournette, some of those other running backs for Jacksonville are starting to chip away at his workload. At the same time, they've been shifting towards the pass a little bit over the last 3 weeks. And the Browns are also good in run defense. So I think Gordon is someone who he's still getting the touches, not as many snaps, but still getting touches, still gets the ball at the goal line. And again, a really nice matchup against the Bills, as Mike pointed out. So someone I'm interested in there. Someone I would be fading a little bit, and I hate to say this, I would be looking to fade Breeze and Thomas in GPPs, not because I'm doubting their potential. I still think that they are elite caliber players. They're just not getting as much passing volume as I would hope to get. And so I would maybe look to pivot to, Jared Goff is someone who's interesting because I think he has a lot of potential because the Rams are getting in the red zone quite a bit, and they don't mind throwing, even if it's to Todd Gurley. I think Goff will have reduced ownership in part because they are road dogs playing against the Vikings. And then I don't also mind pivoting to A.J. Green. I wouldn't want him in cash. He does have a tougher matchup as a road dog in Denver going against a secondary that, although it hasn't played as well as it has in previous seasons, is still holding wide receivers to the 4th fewest fantasy points per game. So not an easy matchup, but he gets so much action per game just in terms of targets and where they're targeting him deep that I think he could still have a chance to have a breakout with reduced ownership because of the matchup.
I agree with all those points except Michael Thomas. I mean, he's averaging 10 targets over the last 4 games.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fair.
He's clearly the guy. The only problem is the price increase, is kind of disappointing without the touchdown luck. But I think there's positive regression coming in touchdown. He's way too talented.
I guess here's my question. So in general, you are looking to stack. So even if you think of Thomas as a guy who could pay off, would you want to stack him with Breeze?
I don't mind stacking him with Breeze and then going Kamara and hope that they don't run, touchdowns in and they get passing touchdowns with Kamara.
Yeah.
You guys know I've been on Kamara like crazy all year, and he's so explosive. I love him out of the passing game. It's just they've been effective running the football, and, I think that could continue this week. So that would be the reason not to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think they're running the ball. I mean, I love Breeze. I think he's still playing at a peak level, especially because now he's complemented by a competent running game. But I just don't see the 300-yard, 3-touchdown game as something that happens as frequently as it has previously. It's still possible, very possible. I don't think it's as likely.
Yeah,
Or go ahead, Mike.
No, the nice part would be that you're getting him at a lower ownership because people are moving off Breeze. Like, they're not playing him. They're worried about the Saints defense like we talked about. And let's be real about this for a second. So I was looking at this earlier. I think Mike Clay tweeted out something about the Saints defense. And granted, they're playing great football. I'm not going to take anything away from them. But when you look at some of the quarterbacks they've played, like you go through Jay Cutler, you go to Mitch Trubisky, you go to Brett Hundley, that's the thing is, like, once you start looking at some of the competition, like the Bills last week, they haven't played some of the top competition. Kirk Cousins is someone who could put up some points in the Superdome. I truly believe that. Marshawn Lattimore has played lights out. Like, that's without a doubt. They need Jordan Reed to get back in the field so they could have another guy to target, like that double-digit target guy. I actually think that Breeze is a solid leverage play, like moving off Ingram, because like Pete said, you can play Kamara and you can play Breeze. That's like one of the unconventional stacks, right? Nobody wants to stack quarterback, running back together, but Kamara is a guy that he could score 2 receiving touchdowns, and that's without a doubt. And don't be worried about Michael Thomas so much. Like, if you're out there listening and you're thinking that Josh Norman is going to see Michael Thomas, that's not the case. Josh Norman plays left cornerback. He plays on the left side of the formation all the time. He's played 1 snap away from there this year. He does not shadow. Michael Thomas only goes on that side of the field about 27% of the time, I think it is. So Michael Thomas won't see him very often. yeah, Michael Thomas has been the definition of consistency. And if you were to look at positive regression like in a dictionary and there was a picture next to it, it'd be like Drew Brees and Michael Thomas high-fiving. So I just think those two, if you go off Mark Ingram, I think you could play Brees and Thomas and get him at lower ownership than typical. And honestly, you could even go Brees, Thomas, and Kamara and just kind of play that, because Ingram has scored now 7 touchdowns in his last 102 carries. That's the second most he's ever scored in his entire career. The only other time he scored more was when he had like 220-something carries like 5 years ago. So there is regression coming from Mark Ingram, and if you're betting on regression from Mark Ingram, it's got to go somewhere, because we know the Saints are going to score points. Their offensive line, as Pete said, they legitimately allow the fewest sacks in the NFL in terms of percentage of dropbacks. So I do think that Brees, Kamara, and Thomas, I think you could like game stack them. And I'm actually interested about Willie Snead. He played more snaps than Brandon Coleman last week, but he wasn't targeted, which means nobody's going to play Willie Snead. And the Redskins have been burned. Kendall Fuller in the slot is not a very good cornerback. He's been burned. He was benched last year at the end of the last year. And the Redskins have allowed, I think, three slot wide receivers to finish top 12. And I think it was Nelson Aguilar twice and Doug Baldwin once, who are primary slot receivers. So it's interesting. Like, have you guys thought about Snead at all, or are you guys just waiting until he puts something up on the scoreboard before putting him into any lineups?
I love that you're talking about Snead. I've mentioned him, and it's just basically like I feel like a footnote in like my wide receiver breakdown each week, because he hasn't done anything. But at some point, like he had one of the greatest first 2 years of his career for an undrafted free agent at the wide receiver position. Like he is an impressive guy and a very precise route runner. He feels like a Drew Brees slot type of wide receiver. I'm actually really surprised we haven't seen more out of him to this point. And I think some of it has to do with just coming back from injury, coming back from the suspension, working his way into the offense. So yeah, I think at some point, like a 2-touchdown game is coming from him, or like, a 10 reception game is coming. And then after that point, people will be back on him.
Sure. Yeah, I think Snead makes sense in like a very top-heavy structure where you're shooting for the moon, and you're getting a lot more leverage on a guy who's 0.5% or whatever. Yep. Whereas contests where they're paying out 20% of the field, or tournaments like that, probably too risky of a play. But I definitely think he's intriguing, and I love the matchup, and would love to have exposure to him, especially in those top-heavy things. To put a ball on the Saints, I think the biggest factor that Mike hit on, and we've talked about a lot, is the defense. Very hard for quarterbacks just to go off when the defense is playing lights out and they're getting huge leads. Like we've seen that a ton already with Drew Brees, where he just, they go into kind of just kill the clock mode, and they're not trying to be aggressive on offense. And hopefully Kirk Cousins can play well in this spot, and we can have a lot of opportunity with the game stack. So if you are running those Brees, Kamara, Thomas teams, if you wanted to get sneaky with Snead, make sure you run it back with someone on the Redskins, because that's what's going to need to happen for it to be a high-scoring game.
Yeah, game stacks in the Superdome, definitely not a bad idea any week. All right, let's keep on moving here. Let's go to conventional stacks. Freedman, why don't you start here?
I mean, I think the obvious one, and I think Mike touched on this at the very top, Alex Smith, Kelsey, Tyreek, totally fine with that. And then if you wanted to run that back with Ingram on the other side or Shepard, I think that works. Also, like, basically all of the players in the Patriots and Raiders game. And however you wanted to go with that. If you wanted to go with, Carr and then Crabtree and Cooper, I'm fine with that. You can run it back with almost anyone on the other side. And then, of course, Brady, Gronk. Burkhead is a guy who has potential both as a runner and a receiver. Cooks is in there. So a lot of ways that you could stack that game.
Mike, who are some of the conventional stacks that are standing out to you? You might have already mentioned some of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously Smith one's huge for me, but I think that Carr, Crabtree, and Cooper is like a thing. I think it's a realistic possibility that I'd want to play like all three of them. Like thinking about the Patriots, like even Stephon Gilmore, the addition that they made this offseason it hasn't really panned out. Like I know they said it was injury that he was out of the lineup for a while, but I think part of it was play. Malcolm Butler started over him for one of the games, or Malcolm Butler was benched one of the games. Like, there's a lot of problems. They're not generating a pass rush. Dante Hightower is out for the year. Shea McClellan was helping their pass rush. He's out for the year. Obviously, guys like, Brock Osweiler is not going to take advantage of that. But if you kind of look at what New England's allowed this year, there have been 3 quarterbacks who have thrown the ball at least 45 times against them. They've allowed at least 7.1 yards per attempt to every quarterback not named Brock Osweiler. So when you kind of go look at Carr and what he's been forced to do recently, he's not a guy that, if you go back to last year, outside of one game against Tampa Bay, he really wasn't throwing the ball more than like 35 times per game. He's never been a volume guy, which is why coming into the year, I compared him to someone like Matt Ryan before his 2016 MVP season, where it was just like, he's a very competent quarterback. I feel like you can build your franchise around him, but I don't think he's like a Tom Brady or anything like that. To be an elite quarterback in fantasy, you need volume. That's what we needed Carr to get. The Raiders defense is not generating a pass rush, which is crazy. They haven't showed up. Their cornerbacks are in a mess. Yarian Conley was just put on IR. David Amerson has been beat like a drum. Like, they just have a bad defense. Like, Tom Brady is going to put up points in this team. So when you kind of look at like the pass attempts, like you look at the last couple weeks for Derek Carr, 52 attempts against KC, 49 attempts against Buffalo. We could see a 50 attempt game. And if we're looking at that, you could realistically see double-digit targets for both Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree. And I just don't know if Stephon Gilmore and Malcolm Butler are good enough to hang with those two wide receivers. So it's like, again, this is not a conventional stack, but I think Carr, Cooper, and Crabtree can actually go in one lineup.
Pete, this is dangerous for you.
Yeah, very dangerous. Load it up. We're gonna back up the truck this week on Carr, Cooper, and I'll throw in some Crabtree as well. Obviously,
Pete's about to buy an airline ticket to Mexico to go watch this in person.
Yeah, if you could play on DraftKings, I would definitely be there. You guys have kind of hit on all the big ones. We've talked on the conventional stuff. We're going to open it up to all the slates. Love Antonio Brown. Ben Roethlisberger makes me a little bit nervous. Haven't seen it from him. I'm a little concerned just about him in general. Want to see him have a really nice game here at home against the Titans. That'd be nice. The guy I have a lot of confidence in if you're playing these Thursday through Monday slates is Carson Wentz. Curious who you guys think the best stack with Wentz would be. Ertz, obviously healthy. I believe he practiced in full today. Great player. That's the number one connection. But Dallas has been good against the tight end, so that's a little concerning. Alshon Jeffrey is another guy who's really interesting. You have Aguilar as well. I have a lot of conviction around Carson Wentz, but if you guys had to stack him with someone, who would it be?
It's fun. Go ahead, Matt. No, Matt, when we had you on our podcast, it was funny. You had mentioned Travis Kelce against Dallas, and I was like, well, Dallas they've really done well against tight ends. And then, I was forced to go back and look at the competition they played. And like Dallas against tight ends, Jermaine Gresham, Evan Engram, sure, but that was his first NFL game. Virgil Green, Martellus Bennett, Tyler Higbee, like George Kittle. These were the tight ends that they were playing. So that when they actually went and played against Kelce, he went and had a monster game. So I think it's got to be Ertz. I know Alshon had a really good game against Denver. Like, I'm not an Alshon Jeffrey fan. I've gotten to see him throughout his entire career in Chicago, and I'm not a huge Jeffrey guy. He's like a high point. He's like a high volume guy. Not really great as a number one wide receiver for a team. Better as like a number two to like Brandon Marshall, like a possession receiver. He needs that. But he played a phenomenal game against the Broncos. Like, Alshon Jeffrey was really good in that game. I don't want to take anything away from that, but he's really the only logical one against the Cowboys. So it's like narrowing this down. It seems like the Cowboys are also going to be without Sean Lee. That's really going to help.
Huge.
That's massive especially for the run defense. Like, that's going to change the dynamic there. It seems like Jay Ajayi is going to be a legitimate play this week, even though he runs with his legs. Like, I know you can't see it if you're listening on a podcast, but they go like a Y. It's really weird how he runs, but he's gonna be a play. But I do think that you're onto something with that Wentz Ertz thing. And by the way, Pete, I just want to say that going back a couple weeks ago when you played the Broncos defense against Philly, I was on that call with you too, man. Like, I was with you on that. I felt like with no Peters at the left tackle, with no Zach Ertz, like, there were so many things that to like about Denver's defense in that game, but Philly they kicked it out of the park, man. So you weren't alone in that one.
Defense might just be not nearly as good as we used to think. I mean, they've been just getting burned by everyone. Granted, they've gone against some good offenses, and this is kind of the last hurrah, I think, for them going against this Cleveland or against the Cincinnati offensive line. But I thought it was a good play because of the Peters thing. I mean, the week before, once Peters went down, San Francisco was getting a ton of pressure on Wentz. So that was my whole thought process. But obviously, that was pretty bad. And luckily they got really lucky with a sack, fumble, touchdown.
Yeah, the touchdown at the end of the game. Yeah.
Yes, they didn't go negative like they did, this week. But, yeah, they're interesting for sure. And I do think the Peters thing is going to be an issue down the road, but I'm happy that the Eagles just had their bye. And obviously the league news is big, so I like Carson Wentz quite a bit.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Pete said, I think in terms of who do you stack him with, I think everyone. I think the Cowboys are going to get smashed in this game. I think it's going to be a huge blowout, and I'm saying that as a Cowboys fan, so that I might have like my anti-Jerry Jones glasses on as I'm viewing this game or something. But yeah, right now Cowboys are 26th in pass DVOA against tight ends. I think Ertz is a great play. But really anyone for the Eagles, I think you could stack.
Are any of you guys on, like, I know we're talking about like the main slate or the Thursday, Monday night slate. Anybody on Mariota? Like the Steelers defense hasn't been the same over the last couple of weeks. Like Jacoby Brissett and Matt Stafford have combined for like 650 yards passing, and Stafford didn't throw a touchdown. Brissett threw 2 of them. They were 2 bombs. Like now Joe Hayden is out for their defense. Like we know that the Steelers are going to score points at home. Like that's why we love Ben and we love Antonio Brown in this matchup. But is anybody thinking about like pivoting off that, and or not even? I mean, not saying that you shouldn't have exposure, but going over to Mariota and like Corey Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I mean, Pete can obviously talk about this more because he's the degenerate who plays all the slates. But yeah, I mean, Corey Davis played much better than the production that you saw out of him last week. So I think he's a guy that people will be a little bit off of because he didn't get like the DraftKings points, but he was very close to having a monster game.
Mm-hmm.
Boys, the power would be off right now, and I would not be able to record this podcast after last week if it was not for the primetime slate. The primetime slate, all-time smash. Cam Newton Funchess everywhere. I was on Burkhead. Very not to go crazy, but sometimes those primetime slates can bail out a very good week. And one thing I will say that I think is very important when things go badly and the chalk bricks and there's low scoring, there's a lot more action in those primetime slates. People are very interested in getting back to even, or if the chalk misses and a lot of the pros do poorly, people have more money in their accounts. So something to be cognizant of is definitely getting in those primetime slates. Mike, to hit on Mariota, I love Mariota as a contrarian play in tournaments this week. The most encouraging thing to me that I saw in his last game was basically he wanted to run. And he had some big bursts. He showed his speed. Obviously, he's lighter this year. And when Mariota has that rushing upside, I mean, he can bust, a 30, 40-yard touchdown with his legs. And I think that really boosts his upside, obviously. And Corey Davis is great. They have a lot of weapons. Delaney Walker, I believe, is going to play. So, I mean, if he has all those weapons and he has his legs going against the Steelers defense that's beat up, I certainly think it's an intriguing spot. And I don't think a lot of people will click on Mariota.
Okay, so we've sort of been talking about this. The next segment is advance in contrarian stacks. I think we've sort of been talking about this. Anyone have any last thoughts on ones that you have not mentioned and you wanted to?
Yeah, I don't mind putting Ingram and Kamara together and pairing them with the Saints defense, which, they're big home favorites, potential for more sacks, more interceptions, defensive touchdowns, stuff like that. So it might seem random to put Ingram and Kamara together, but I think there's enough rushing goodness in that offense for both of them to combine for a lot of production.
One that's really crazy that I don't know of all the balls to play, but certainly could pay dividends, especially since it's indoors, is Blaine Gabbert, Fitzgerald, or whoever else you want to stack him with. Obviously, you want to puke when you think about Blaine Gabbert, but another guy is a sneaky athlete. He's 4,900. You can stack up a lot of these other high-priced guys. There's a lot of studs you want to pay for. So going Gabbert with one of these cheaper guys, I don't hate. And then if you're going to run it back, curious your guys' thoughts on someone like Will Fuller. I imagine Hopkins is going to see a ton of Patrick Peterson. So going Will Fuller, who hasn't had the chemistry, obviously. He was great with Watson. But, yeah, what are your guys' thoughts there?
I don't think Fuller's going to play.
Fuller's out.
He's out?
Fuller has a rib issue. So I think it's basically going to be – they have
Bruce Ellington,
and who plays primarily in the slot.
They have DeAndre Hopkins.
Yes. So, I mean, I think it's going to be Hopkins getting a lot of targets force-fed going against Peterson, which is its own intriguing matchup. I think he's going to have really low ownership.
He's
I remember that hit on
6,100.
Fuller. I saw it this last week. I just didn't realize that he was actually out. So
Hopkins was 9,200 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he's 6,100 now.
Super cheap.
And he has 30 targets over the last 2 weeks since then.
Yeah. The Peterson effect.
The Peterson effect, yeah.
Yeah.
No joke. And the other problem now with Fuller out, like Fuller was very good for Hopkins in that, the safety had to respect him, and now all that attention. Maybe I'm less high on this situation overall, but I do think Gabbert at his pricing. Some of these cheap guys, my favorite one that thanks to Mike, he really sold me on Mike Evans. I think the Fitzpatrick, after he burned everyone last week to Mike Evans, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. We need Jay Cutler and Devontae Parker to hook up a few times. We need them to score points. And I think it's realistic because, like, Devontae Parker, I think, is a solid play because if you look at the cornerbacks for Tampa, like Vernon Hargreaves and Brent Grimes are like, they're really short cornerbacks. Like, they're 5'9" and 5'10", I want to say. So, like, Devontae Parker, 6'3", he high points the ball extremely well. If he's in man-to-man coverage, Cutler will throw to him. So, I mean, there's a lot to like in that situation. And if they move Hargreaves into the slot, then he's going to be matched up with Jarvis Landry, which is obviously a good thing for Jay Cutler as well. So I think Jay Cutler is like never a guy that you really want to trust. But he's in a position like where this team has like lost it. Like their defense is awful. They're allowing a lot of points. Kenyon Drake and Damian Williams can both catch passes. So that's like a really off the wall one. Like I never really want to trust Jay, but Jay and Devontae Parker isn't like the worst stack.
No love for Bortles Lee combination. Come on, guys.
I don't want to trust Bortles like ever.
Yeah. That's fair. All right, let's do our last segment here before our prop bets. Let's get some bold calls. So in this segment, I go around and ask each of these guys for one real bold football call and then one bold DFS call. Pete, I'll start with you.
Oh, of course you're going to start with me when I'm completely lost on who to pick. I need your guys' help. On the Three Donkeys, we pick games every week, and we're all huge fish on that. DFS call, I mean, it's been a conviction play of mine on the DFS Edge podcast, but I think this is like all-time great spot to buy Kamara. I don't know if everyone's going to be – I think a lot of people in cash are going to be on Ingram, but I am absolutely in love what I've seen out of Kamara. I know it's not bold at all, but I want to emphasize it here. The guy is a freak in terms of getting linebackers and safeties and his route running out of the backfield. I think he's one of the absolute best pass catchers that we have in football. And he's been elusive, explosive on the ground, just playing on the best offense. I think he's absolutely a guy you got to target. And if I'm going to go bold, I'm going to go with Amari Cooper. I know the Oakland Raiders aren't at home, but a neutral spot here. I'm going to say Oakland somehow beats the Patriots, even though they're scheming here in Colorado with obviously the elevation. I'm going to say Amari Cooper has a huge game, and somehow Oakland beats the Patriots.
Pete, did you give us?
That's not a sharp take at all. That's a biased, terrible take.
Did you give us a call on Kamara? Or did you say that you liked them?
I'm giving a call. I'll say Kamara's top 5 fantasy. Oh, that's not even bold anymore. I used to say that. I'll say Kamara's a top 3 fantasy running back this week. Is that bold enough?
I like it. No, I like it. Yeah, for sure. Freedman, what you got?
Okay, so you mentioned earlier Bortles and Lee, and I'm going to throw that back at you and say that the Browns get their first win of the season. So they are at home, and remember, this is bold. I don't think this is actually going to happen. They're at home. They're 7.5-point underdogs to the Jags. So I like the Jaguars in general, kind of like big picture, but I think that either this is a Jags blowout or a close Browns victory. And so the reason is that the Browns are good against the run. And I think Jason McCourty, returning from injury, can shut down Marquise Lee. The Browns aren't otherwise good in pass defense, but the Jags aren't good at passing the ball. The Jags are strong in pass defense, but they suck against the run, and the Browns are better at running than throwing. So I think it's a situation where what the Browns suck at less is it aligns with what the Jags suck at more. So it's a situation where, like, I think they could get that first and probably only win of the season, in which Hugh Jackson is coaching for his job, and you have players who are playing for their future jobs, either with a new coach or a new front office. So I'm going with the Browns winning at home outright. For DFS, I'm going with Ingram and Kamara combining for 200 scrimmage yards and 3 touchdowns.
Wow, a lot of Kamara love. I like the Browns call. Yeah, the suck Venn diagram is in their favor.
Yes.
Mike, what you got on bold calls?
That's funny. I just wanted to say on the Jaguars call, D.D. Westbrook and Keelan Cole are like going to be like sleeper plays because it appears that Allen Hurns is not going to play. So as for my bold real life call, it's that the Rams offense is slowed down by the Vikings in Minnesota, and they're going to score just 16 points this week, and the Vikings win that game. I know it's not a bold prediction that the Vikings win, but I think it's bold to say that the Rams would only score 16 points, which translates to 1 touchdown and 3 field goals. So my bold DFS call is that Mike Evans scores 30 DK points this week and is a must play in cash games, tournaments, all that.
Pete's getting excited over there about the Mike Evans call.
Hell yeah.
It's magic back with Mike Evans. Dude, these spots are good, man. One of my best fantasy days ever was Fitzpatrick throwing for 6 touchdowns. I'm trying to relive that glory. So,
well, think about it for a second. Like, think about Fitzmagic. Like, going back to 2015, obviously he was playing well. Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker. But you look at, he obviously struggled last year. But look at Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker this year. Brandon Marshall was awful in New York. Eric Decker looks like he's toast in Tennessee. So maybe there was something to that. I don't know. Maybe he just needs a legit number 1 wide receiver like Mike Evans.
Like the Dolphins defense looked so good last night, though, man. Monday Night Football.
It's hard to get over.
Really looked good. I don't know. Yeah, I'm buying. It was awful. And the nice thing too, we saw Cam rip out like an 80-yard run or something. Like Fitzmagic has some really sneaky rushing upside. So yeah. I'm with you. I'm buying that big time.
All right. Whenever Pete starts talking about Fitzmagic's rushing upside, it's too far.
In comparison to Cam too.
I'm not comparing him to Cam. I'm just saying we saw Cam obviously shred. I mean, I talked about it up front. I mean, I think that's definitely going to continue to happen for Carolina. But yeah, I'm gonna look up some Ryan Fitzpatrick stats to give you a nice little rebuttal there, Freedman.
All right, it's that time. It's time to put some 6-packs of Coors Light into play. We're going to offer some skill game propositions for the next couple of minutes before we get out of here. People are going to take those. But first, let me run through what happened last week. Last week, Peter went 9-11. Freeman also went 9-11, even though I will say, just based on how it was going in the pod, Freeman was 1-11 and then rallied back to go 9-11. So won his last 8. It was looking bad for him for a little bit there. I went 6-6, and then Sean went 12-8. Yeah, I mean Sean.
Of course.
Yeah. So on the year, Peter is 101-91. So Pete, you're 10 games over 500. Pretty nice. Freeman is 80-101. So Freeman, you're going the wrong way there, bud.
Leverage, buddy. Just got to find some leverage.
Just keep on going. Yeah. I'm 53-48, and then our guests are 10 games over 500, 71-61. So no pressure, Mike. Yeah.
And just real quick to throw it out there before the Coors Light props, Fitzmagic has 13 rushing touchdowns on his
rushing touchdowns, but that's like I know like those count for fantasy points, but those aren't actually predictive.
Over 20 yards a bunch of times as well, sir. A 31-yard rushing touchdown in 2009. Is that
2009?
Yeah.
8 years ago.
Hold on a second. So Fitzpatrick
that was
seems
12 teams ago for him.
Fitzpatrick seems like he's old, but I want to say Ryan Fitzpatrick is only like 33 years old. Like, he's not that old. Like, people think that Fitzpatrick is like one of the oldest guys. Like, he seems like it. He's been around forever. He's been on a million teams.
He's a Harvard guy, too. I mean, you got to give a little credit there, you know?
Yeah, you couldn't miss the Harvard guy.
Does the Harvard smarts mean that his brain communicates faster with his legs and they move faster? Like, what does that mean?
Saying his smarts, like he's going to be able to find some nice ways to leverage his legs, you know? Like he's clearly not a freak athlete. He's no Cam Newton or anything, but yeah. I mean, 13 rushing touchdowns, but what do you have to say to that?
He's about to look up his high school stats, his high school rushing stats here.
I'm sure he just crushed in high school.
He scored no rushing touchdowns last year in 14 games.
He wasn't Fitzmagic last year. He was in Fitz hell.
I mean,
the Jets also didn't score any touchdowns last year. So
that's also true.
He was a Fitzmuggle, right, Freedman?
Fitzmuggle.
I hear you. I'm just saying there's a little bit. It's not Marcus Mariota. It's not Cam Newton. It's better than Eli Manning.
This is where we are starting the prop. How many rushing yards do you think Fitzmagic gets this week?
Yeah, put your money where your mouth is, guys.
All right. I like that. Let's see here. What do you think a fair line is? We'll have a third party set the line.
Like 70 yards?
No, you're the one who's so bullish on his rushing upside. What do you think?
I'll take over like 7 yards or something. He rushed for 9 yards last week.
I'd set the over-under at I'd set it like 18 rushing yards or something like that.
18?
18.
Oh, man, that's hard to take the over, but I will.
Done.
Mike, you set the line. I mean, I feel bad. All right. I will give you the 18, but I get an automatic free roll. I'll give you the 18, which is obviously a bad prop for me, Freedman. But if he scores a rushing touchdown, that's a point for me and a loss for you. Okay? It's not a prop.
That's fair.
I get that extra incentive, all right?
That's fair.
Okay, perfect.
By the way, guys, while you guys were looking up Fitzmagic, I just wanted to let you know that I thought I remembered the Raiders played a game in Mexico last year, and they did. It was against the Texans. And by the way, in that game, Derek Carr, on just 31 attempts, he threw for 295 yards and 3 touchdowns, including one to Amari Cooper. So they play well in Mexico. I'm just going to go off that.
Do you guys want to double down the prop on Amari Cooper versus Crabtree this week?
That's a good one.
Double down on it.
I'm fine with letting ride what we already have.
You do have the Amari Cooper Cup, so as well.
Yeah, you have Amari Cooper versus Cooper Cup this week. How many fantasy points am I giving him on that one?
I think 3.5.
Yeah.
All right.
You should win that one this week.
And most weeks. Freeman, what's your
I'll take Kamara. I want to get some more leverage on Kamara this week. What's a figure you want to do against the projection? You want to do something where it's inverse?
How about you just do Ingram versus Kamara? Which one would you rather have?
I mean, I think Ingram has a little bit higher expectation, but I mean, I'd do that to give up. I mean, I'm always happy to give a little equity if I can get some back. Right now we have Ingram at 19.2 and Kamara at 18. I'll do it straight up. What the hell?
All right, I'll take Ingram, but I mean, I'm very bullish on Kamara as well.
I'll take Kamara. Yeah, I'll take Kamara.
Okay, I'll take you on both of that. Brian, you want in?
Yeah, I'll go Ingram side. Sure.
Okay.
What do you think a fair point line is between Gordon and Kamara?
Let's see. Right now, we have Gordon at 17.2.
So like a point and a half or something.
I'll give you a point, Brian, if you want. Melvin.
Sure.
Take it. There you go. Yeah. Let's see. Look at this, Freedman. He's getting out there. I like that.
I'll jump on that.
All right. So are you on the Kamara side or the Melvin Gordon side?
I'll do Kamara.
Okay. I like Gordon, one. They're $100 apart on DraftKings, so I feel like that's probably going to be a hard decision for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people are easily going to go with Kamara.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
that's probably true.
I think that's what makes Gordon really interesting as a pivot.
Yep, that's probably true.
One thing that I think we can do to give just for the props, let's go through the positions here. So let's talk quarterback first. I know we just said Kamara, and we can come back to running back. But quarterback, I think Mike definitely wants some action on Alex Smith, it sounds like.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have Alex Smith at 21.6. Let's see, on the main slate, I think outside of Brady, he is the highest projected right there with Breeze. I'm trying to think of what a good prop. We can give you just the points off the bat, although I don't really like the under because I like Alex Smith a lot. What do you guys think is reasonable here with Alex Smith?
Would we be interested in doing some sort of draft?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, a draft. But the problem is you have Tom Brady, who's the clear one.
Yeah.
So how about this? How about this, Mike? What do you think about this? You'll get Alex Smith and Breeze, and we'll get Brady and someone versus you. Because those are two guys you're on, right?
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take Smith and Breeze.
Okay. So you get Smith and Breeze, and then we get to pick two quarterbacks. Because right now we have Smith and Breeze as the 2-3 in terms of fantasy points. Highest scorer wins.
And you guys are going to take Brady and who?
And whoever else. I'll take Brady and Carr. Who do you want, Freedman? Main slate only.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's –
I want Carr.
I think it's Brady and Carr. I mean, I think it not that it pretty much has to be, but I think it pretty much has to be Brady and Carr.
That's a good prop, though. That's a really good prop.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll take that versus Mike. Freedman, you want that too?
Yeah, I'm taking that.
Okay.
So last week we had, I think – was it 3 or 4 quarterbacks versus the field? Do you think
Yeah, let's do that with all the slates, though.
All the slates.
Let's take
any 4 quarterbacks versus the field.
Yeah, let's do I think that's fine. We have 20, maybe 5. Let's do 5 versus the field. We're doing all the slates.
Pete, I'll take the 5, or do you want to take the 5?
I'll do either or. I'll do the either or. I will book against everyone else on whatever side they want.
For what it's worth, Sean won it with the field with Kirk Cousins, highest scoring quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay, Pete, you can let me take the 5, and
Okay,
I'll book everyone.
Okay.
I will do. Let me take a quick look here. I will do Brady, Wentz, Alex Smith, Roethlisberger, and Breeze.
Good list.
Mm-hmm.
Russell Wilson's the only guy that I probably would try to include.
Yeah.
Mike, what side do you want? 5 quarterbacks or the field?
Oh God. I'll take the 5 quarterbacks.
Okay. You got it. Who do you want?
Brady, Smith, Breeze, Wentz, and Roethlisberger.
Okay, same 5.
I think those are same 5. Yeah.
Brian, you want in on this? You're on mute, bud.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take the 5 as well. I'll do Brady, Wentz. Yeah, I'll take 5 against the field.
Okay.
I'll do Brady, Wentz, Wilson, Breeze, and I'll go Carr over Smith.
Ooh, fading Alex Smith over there. Not a believer, huh, bud?
No, I'm just going for ceiling. I think maybe Carr has a slightly higher ceiling.
Okay.
Maybe that's
a really good one. Let's move to running back, because I think we've hit quarterback pretty well here. I'll go some Rex Burkhead love again. If anyone wants a prop on that, I'd let it somewhat. You can take any Patriots running back if you want. I'll also do it against the projection, which we have at 11.4 right now.
I like your side of that. I think he's really cheap at 3,600.
Yeah, I really like him this week.
Yeah, he's too cheap.
Do you think he's like cash playable, Pete?
Yeah.
I do. I mean, at 3,600, I think he's in consideration. We'll see how everything breaks it down this week. Obviously, there's some risk. I would prefer him in a leagues format. Run it back. You have a lot of exposure to that game. Maybe you go Brady, Burkhead, Cooper, something like that. Straight cash, like head to heads, probably a little risky, but I still think it's intriguing. Let's do. You guys want to do another draft, or anyone else you guys want to throw out there?
So what if we did a draft where the first person gets Le'Veon and then they have to go below 75 for their 4th pick?
Okay.
That works.
Yeah, I think it's interesting at running back just overall. I'll do with this. I'll take Kamara, and one guy we haven't talked about at all is Kareem Hunt. What are your guys' thoughts on him this week? Right now, he's right there with McCoy and Ingram. We also have Todd Gurley, who it sounds like Mike is bearish on. Kareem Hunt, the concern, I guess, is the snap count and being on the field and pass protection. What are your thoughts, Mike, on Kareem Hunt?
Yeah, the Chiefs have obviously been in games that have been a bit closer. They've fallen behind in a couple games against the Cowboys, which led to a little lower snaps for Hunt. They're getting Charkandrick West in the field and passing downs. What's really scary about Hunt for me is that Spencer Ware, if you guys recall last year, through the first 6 weeks of the season, it might have been the first 7, he was a top 12 running back. People wanted to play him. He dominated the first week of the season, and it was similar to Hunt in that way. And they both kind of fell off. I know the offensive line has had some problems, but the issue with me is if we're expecting Alex Smith to have this massive game, how big of a game can Hunt have? But at the same time, it's difficult not to like him against the Giants team that, again, we've mentioned they've kind of given up on the season. But oddly enough, they've only allowed 3 running backs to finish in the top 15 this season. Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, and Ezekiel Elliott, all workhorse running backs. So I do like Hunt as an RB1. I just don't think that – I think there's better ways that you could spend your cash this week.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Let's do a draft. I want some more Kamara exposure. So who wants the 1 pick? Why don't we do 1, then 2, 3, 4, and then you get a 5, 6? Because I think Le'Veon's clearly the number 1 guy. What do you guys think about that?
Okay.
I'll draft first. I mean, I prefer the 2, 3, 4 just so I can get Kamara, but I'll do either side.
You could take Kamara first.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, Pete. I like Kamara, but I'll just continue to lose and let you have your way. So I'll do Le'Veon Bell.
Okay, I will take Ingram, Kamara, and this is DraftKings scoring. I will take. You know what's good? I'll take Kareem Hunt. I think that's obviously I don't love his price relatively, but I'll take him for raw projection. That leaves you with some good guys. I mean, you still have Gurley, McCoy, and Fournette there. And
Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, I just got screwed, but whatever. I'll go with Gurley. No, I hate this. I'll go with Melvin Gordon. I'm going to go with Tevin Coleman. Under the assumption that he ends up being the guy who starts and Devontae Freeman is out. And then I'll do Gurley because I feel like I kind of have to, but I don't like his spot on the road as a dog.
You got Le'Veon, and then you get two guys. So out of those,
there's my bad.
Like 8 players.
I picked like 3 guys. Okay, sorry. All right, so yeah. I'll do Gordon and Coleman.
Okay, Mike, you have an opinion on either side you want?
I would take the 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, okay, definitely.
I would take Le'Veon.
All right, so then I would go Ingram, Hunt. I feel like Fournette's going to score here, if not twice. Ingram, Hunt, and damn it, Kamara. Let's go Ingram, Hunt, Kamara. I'm actually going to go the same pitch that you had, Pete. I know
he was starting to get so excited by the idea of getting Kamara at 5.
Kamara I was about to be.
Yeah, no, it's as you said yours against Matt. I was just kind of like, I kind of like his picks.
Okay, yeah, I'll go. I'm going to go McCoy, and I'll go Leonard Fournette as my other ones. I think it's all close, and I didn't. Yeah. I thought that would be closer than it was, Matt. Throw something out there that you want where I have to take some negative EV, buddy.
No, it's fine. It's not a big deal. But yeah, let's kick it over. I think to wide receivers.
Yeah.
I
want Michael Thomas for sure. I like Michael Thomas. I mean, Mike has to get something on Mike Evans. We'll just give him. We'll give him what we have the projection right now, 17.4. That does seem low.
Yeah, 17.4.
Once you do Thomas versus Evans, they're like projected for the exact same.
You want that, Mike?
Yeah, I'll take Evans.
Okay, I'll take Thomas.
I like Thomas, but I like Evans more, yeah.
Okay.
Ooh, interesting. I will take I'm going to take the Evans side of that.
Okay. I want some Tyreek Hill exposure with the ceiling here. There's got to be a really good draft just in terms of high scoring. I mean, Tyreek Hill has got some massive upside in this game. Mm-hmm. Like when a team is quitting on the coach, the guy who can make any play into a touchdown seems pretty nice.
Yeah, the Giants run a lot of man coverage too. Janoris Jenkins was burned by Garrett Selleck last week. It's just odd that Janoris Jenkins is kind of falling off the face of the earth. Obviously,
Marquise doesn't care, right? What's going on there?
He was suspended. Yeah, he was suspended. Yeah. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, their second best corner, he was suspended. These guys don't want to play for McAdoo. Marquise Goodwin with that big play. If you go back the week before that, Sammy Watkins had the big play. Robert Woods had a big play. They just been allowing big plays galore. So I do like the Hill call. My question would be would you prefer Tyreek Hill or Julio Jones?
Yeah, I mean, the Sherman injury is going to be interesting and pouring out for Sherman. Obviously, I ruptured my Achilles too. That's a freaking just worst injury. I hope he bounces back strong. I like Julio quite a bit. I love Amari Cooper too. I mean, wide receiver stacked here. Let's get it. Yeah. Let's do a draft, and we got some good ones on tight end, and we can finish out with defense. What do you guys think is fair? Do you guys want to do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thing again? I think that's probably fair.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'll take either side. Friedman, which one do you want?
It doesn't matter because whichever one I pick, I'm going to screw myself. So I'll just.
He's sulking now.
I'll pick 2, 3, 4. I'll pick 2, 3, 4.
I'll do Antonio Brown.
Okay. I'm going to go with Evans, Thomas. Evans, Cooper, and I think I'm going to be contrarian here and go with Hopkins.
Wow. Okay. I will take Thomas, and I'll take Tyreek Hill.
Didn't I take Thomas? I did Evans, Thomas, Hopkins.
Evans, Thomas, Hopkins. Okay.
So I will take Amari.
Yeah, I'll take Cooper.
Yeah, that's right. My mistake.
Oh, man, this puts me in a rock and a hard place. I have Cooper, Tyreek, and Julio. For ceiling, I think I still got to go Julio, and I can't – man, this is just like a clash of my two most favorite things. Screw it. I'll leave some equity on the table. I'll take Julio off. I'm going to go Cooper and Tyreek Hill.
You think it's a lot of equity?
What do you want?
I would take the first pick.
Okay, go ahead.
Antonio Brown.
Okay, I will take Thomas, Evans, and Cooper.
All right, I will take Julio and Tyreek.
Yeah, that's Antonio Brown, Julio, and Tyreek is pretty filthy. Yeah. Brian, you want to decide on this, bud?
Yeah, I'll let you. We'll switch it up. You can have first pick.
Okay, I'll go Antonio Brown.
Okay, I'll go Evans, Thomas, Julio.
Okay, and I'll take Tyreek and Cooper.
Yeah.
All right, boys, that's some good stuff right there. I'll also go on Alshon Jeffrey, Mike, if you want to take the under on him. I can take the over on our projection. I don't know what it is, but do you want that?
13.7. You have a 13.7.
What do you think a fair line is on him? I mean, these projections, obviously, it's very early in the week.
That's pretty fair. I mean, if he doesn't score, you're talking like 6 catches, 77 yards, something like that.
You want the under or you don't have to?
I don't feel strongly either way about that one.
Anyone else that you do feel strongly about, bearish or bullish?
I take the over on Parker's 13.1.
All right. I'll give that to you if you give me Alshon Jeffrey over.
All right, you want the over on Jeffrey?
I'm taking over on Jeffrey, but you get the over on Parker.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I'll take the under on Parker. I'll take the under on Parker. Yeah, but I like Jeffrey. I would be on the over on that.
Okay. All right, tight end. We got. I mean, everyone's jizzing over Kelsey here. I mean, this is the eruption spot in a lot of different ways. I'll be nice. To the guest, I'll take Ertz over Kelsey, even though I think Kelsey's better.
Are we including Gronk in this?
I was going to say Gronk is he's going to smash too.
Oh yeah, we got some smash spots. Yeah, I mean those 3 guys are just ridiculous, and probably Evan Ingram's the 4th guy, maybe Jimmy Graham 5, something like that.
So would you take Kelsey over Gronk too, Pete?
Would I?
Yeah.
I'll take Kelsey over Gronk.
Yeah.
Okay, how many people
are? I was trying to be nice. I was trying to give Mike something there with that.
That's tough, man. Like Gronk, I don't know, because like Kelsey, like it hasn't happened in a while, but you know, like those weeks where he'll just disappear. Gronk is coming off like a light game for him. I know he had like 74 yards, but he's coming off like a light game where Oakland has already allowed 5 tight ends to record more than 58 yards and or a touchdown. Like they are awful. Their cornerbacks are awful. Their linebackers can't cover. Their safeties have no communication. Like it's a really smash spot for Gronk, and I feel like he might be a little bit under-owned because Kelsey's in such a great spot.
Yeah,
I feel like the floor for Gronk is higher than Kelsey, even though the ceilings might be similar. I just think you're going to get Gronk at lower ownership this week than you typically would.
Okay, well, how about something like this? You guys can all say who you want, and then I'll take one of the other 2, top 3 tight ends. So, tag, if you want Kelsey or Ertz or Gronk or whoever, I'll take one of the other 2 guys. And all of you can take your guy, and I'll take one of the others.
I'll take Gronk.
Okay, I'll take Kelsey. Pete?
I'll take Kelsey.
I will take Ertz.
Nice.
Brian, you want?
Yeah, I will. I'll take Kelsey.
Nobody's going to take Jared Cook?
I will take Ertz.
Yeah. Any other tight ends that we should hit on here that you want to prop on at all, Mike?
No, I mean, I think Jared Cook's in a great spot to play against New England, but that's the thing is just everybody against New England is lined up well. But he's not in the tier with those guys though.
Yeah, no, obviously not.
It's tough.
It's kind of tough. What about with one of these Houston tight ends, we used to pick on Arizona, and obviously it's a dumpster fire when you have freaking Savage at quarterback. But
who's like the cheap tight end for cash? Is it like
I'm trying to think about that.
Yeah, it's Croft.
It's Tyler Croft.
I think it's pretty easily Croft going against the Broncos, who are right now allowing the most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. And Croft is getting, easily the super majority of the snaps for them. Not getting many targets, but getting targeted enough. And so Croft, or if you wanted to live dangerously, Mercedes Lewis going against the Browns. And I know that sounds unreal, and it is, but Mercedes Lewis actually leads that team in touchdowns receiving pretty handily.
That's because of all of his London games.
Well, yeah, but
like
all of his London
London
games, yeah. But I think he has just under like 40% of the receiving touchdowns for that team, which is pretty substantial. So if you're thinking that they might get in a situation where they are throwing the ball, and it would make sense for them to throw the ball against the Browns, Lewis is a guy who could have some upside there. But yeah, I think Croft is probably the cheap cash game play.
Yeah. All right, you guys want to finish with some defenses?
Do it. I gotta go on brand here. I need Denver D exposure. I love the Jags D. I don't see how Cleveland moves the ball, but I do love
Jags. Jags is the nuts for sure.
I wish they're at home, but yeah, I guess their home field's
I think it's probably with the Jags, like the equity with the Jags is we probably need to do a 1-5-6 situation in a draft.
All right, let's do that. Let's do one last draft and get out of here. I'll book against everyone. Freedman, what pick do you want? 1-5-6 or 2-3-4?
2-3-4.
Okay, I'll take the Jags.
All right, you are taking the Jags. I will do 1 second. I don't like the way this is looking. I will do.
One is definitely the best, I think.
I will do Kansas City. Sorry, let me sort through. I'm sorting in the models here. I will do Kansas City. I will do New Orleans, and I will do Pittsburgh.
Okay. Kansas City, New Orleans, and Pittsburgh. So you left Denver. That's amazing. I'll take the Broncos.
I wanted to be gentlemanly there for you.
That was kind of you. And I'll take the Chargers in this spot. Their pass rush is so good. It is a little concerning. Harder to get sacks, obviously, on someone like Tyrod Taylor. Actually, I don't even know. I need to check in on the data on that. I know like certain scrambling quarterbacks do take a lot of sacks. Tyrod's been so elusive, and they're a run-heavy team. Mike, do you know anything about the Buffalo taking sacks?
Yeah, I want to say that he's taken the second most sacks in terms of sacks per dropback. Yeah, 9.6% of the time he drops back, he's sacked, and the only quarterback that has taken more sacks is Jacoby Brissett.
All right. Nice.
Interesting.
Chargers. Mike, what side do you want?
I'll take number 1.
Go ahead.
Jacksonville.
All right. I will take Denver, Kansas City, and I'll stick with my Chargers here.
All right. Then I will go with Arizona and Baltimore.
Okay. Like it. Brian, you want in on this?
Yeah, we'll do it real quick. I'll take Jacksonville first pick.
Okay. I will go the same 3.
Okay. I'm going to go what were your 3 again? I'm sorry.
Denver. I took Arizona and the Chargers, I believe, right? Or no, I didn't take Arizona. I took Denver, the Chargers, and the Chiefs.
Chargers, Chiefs. Okay. So I will go – yeah, this is sort of tough here. I will go Arizona and and Baltimore.
Cool. All right, we got some good drafts. Mike, you've been awesome, man. Anything you want to plug?
No, man, just obviously, like, on my weekly piece I do, it's called The Primer. I release it every Thursday morning. I go through every single game on the slate, talk about every single player. It's like 20,000 words. It's killing me slowly, but I hope you guys enjoy it, so hopefully you guys can check that out.
Yeah, awesome piece. And obviously Mike does great stuff with Fantasy Pros too, which is an awesome resource. Any closing words from Freedman or Brian?
Are you closing this out, Pete? I would love you to.
I don't want to close it out. I want you to close this out.
Let's kill it. Let's go.
Yeah,
all right, I'll close
this
this out.
Yeah.
All right, I'll close this out. We got to thank Mike again. It was awesome having him come on. I think the Mike Evans call is certainly good. And we'll end with this. Amari Cooper, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Got to have him in your lineup. Good luck, everybody.